Today on DNVR Buffs Live, do the Colorado Buffaloes still have the best quarterback in the Big 12 going into 2025? We're going to play a game of buy or sell, national championship notes, NFL draft, final AP poll, and more. Let's go.
Squad.
Yep. Two-man game once again.
Dynamic duo.
Coming to you live from the Toyota Lounge, driven by your Front Range Toyota stores. Toyota, the official vehicle of DNVR. It's DNVR Buffs Primetime.
We out here.
Yep. RK abandoned us.
That boy bogus.
It's crazy, huh?
Out there twerking.
Yep. Literally. Literally. That's what he's doing.
We miss you, Ryan, man. Pull up on us.
No, he'll be back tomorrow. His flight was delayed today, and he is unable to make the show. So y'all just go bug him on Twitter.
Facts.
For missing another show. But we got it. We're going to hold it down.
Definitely.
A lot to get to, man.
Yes.
We have a new national champion. We'll talk about that. We got a new NFL mock draft to talk about. Final AP poll with the Buffs making an appearance.
Ooh.
Buy or sell? Are you excited for that?
Yeah, especially since you kept it a secret from me.
I always try to. We start today. We're going to talk about the quarterbacks. Because in 2023, in the last year of the Pac-12, Coach Prime's first season at Colorado, it was clearly the conference of quarterbacks, right?
Yes.
You had Caleb, you had Bo, you had Michael Penix, you had Shedeur. You had a ton of quarterbacks.
Caleb Williams?
I said Caleb.
Oh, okay.
I know, right?
Yeah, got him
going on the Bears.
Hey, bear down, man. We got our guy Ben Johnson's in the building. But go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
Tune that down. Last year, obviously, we had the best quarterback in the country in Shedeur Sanders. But you looked around the Big 12, and it was, I mean, in my opinion, clearly the best quarterback conference in the country. I mean, the SEC kind of fell flat, right, with Milroe and Beck.
Yep.
The Big Ten, I mean, Gabriel was there, Howard was there, but they kind of grew as the season went, right? It wasn't like coming into the year like this is the conference.
Yeah, no doubt. Could it be the same in 2025 here?
Could it? Let's talk about it. And could CU also have the best quarterback again for the third straight year in their conference? Of course.
It's on the table.
They'll have the battle between Kaidon Salter and Julian Lewis. We'll get to that here in a second, but it really is crazy. When you scroll through the Big 12 here, Sam Leavitt is back, ASU's quarterback, who, I mean, really had an awesome season, led them to the playoff, was able to do things with his arm and legs. No Fafita's back.
Yeah.
Sawyer Robertson is back. He was probably one of the surprises in the conference in terms of quarterback play. Brendan Sorsby is back at Cincinnati, which kind of
quietly solid, though.
That's solid. Yes, you're right. Connor Wegman's transferring into Houston. Rocco Becht is back at Iowa State. Jalen Daniels back at Kansas State. Avery Johnson is back. Josh Hoover's back at TCU. Baron Morton's back at Texas Tech. Devin Dampierre is joining Utah with his OC from New Mexico.
Yep.
It really looks like we only have new quarterbacks for West Virginia, potentially UCF, and Oklahoma State, and Colorado.
Yeah, man. It seems like, and this is how I look at football. Whether you're talking about high school football, college football, NFL, if you don't have a quarterback that you believe in, that everybody, teammates, coaches, staff included, believes in, you're behind the eight ball. And that's going to be especially pertinent in 2025 with all the talented, productive, experienced quarterbacks just in the Big 12, that you just mentioned. I mean, a lot of these guys have played a lot of football and have been very productive, in particular, and obviously in 2024 as we head into the new year. But Kaidon Salter, you can throw him right in that mix, right? He's been very, very productive. He's proven, right? I mean, there's a reason that this coaching staff really didn't flirt with any other quarterbacks in the transfer portal, right? It seemed like they identified their guy early on in the process as Kaidon Salter, and they closed the deal. They landed the plane, so to speak, on getting him to commit, obviously to the Buffs this cycle. But again, just a reminder of what Kaidon Salter has done: 56 total touchdowns, not total, 56 passing touchdowns over his career, almost 6,000 passing yards for his career. He's run for 2,000 yards on the ground for his career. So again, this is a dual threat guy. Again, he is definitely going to be able to use his legs. Perhaps, and this is maybe a different question, best dual threat?
Oh, absolutely. I think he's in the conversation.
Right? I mean, Dampier is going to be in that conversation as well.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, best dual threat quarterback in the conference is definitely going to be on the table for Dampier as well. But I mean, we're talking overall quarterback as well. I mean, we can't discount what he's done as a passer. And the thing that gives me optimism for 2025 is this is going to be the best set of receivers, the best set of skill players that Kaidon Salter has ever been surrounded by.
100%.
And that's going to unlock something in him, I believe. And again, the coaching that he's going to be surrounded by as well is going to help unlock something in him. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if, a year from now, we look at Kaidon Salter as one of, if not the best quarterbacks in the Big 12, after, just one season, in Boulder.
And then on the other hand, I mean, with Julian, I mean, we all know what he is at this point. He's a phenom, right?
Yes.
If he comes in and if you're able to beat out what you just described in Kaidon Salter, I mean, you're absolutely still in this conversation of potentially having the best quarterback in the Big 12 because of this receiving core, because of there's an established relationship with Julian and Pat Shurmur already, kind of like what Shedeur had. So, I mean, the ceiling is first place for this quarterback room. And this is, top to bottom, this has to be one of the most talented quarterback rooms. Just these two guys alone.
Exactly.
Not only do you give yourself options, I mean, there's teams like Arizona State, like BYU, like Arizona, who are going to, Baylor, you could throw in there too, who have a solidified guy, right? Like, there's no question. There's not going to be a quarterback competition. It's going to be just the guy who it was last year who played well is going to be the guy this year. So there are some questions, but in terms of overall talent level between these two, Kaidon Salter and Julian Lewis, the ceiling is, man, it's as high as it can possibly go, honestly.
No doubt about it. And I'm looking at some of these other guys too. And you can certainly say this about Colorado losing some talent, but neither Kaidon Salter or Julian Lewis were throwing to these guys, previously. But I look at Rocco Becht, who's losing his top two receivers from this season. Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel. I look at Noah Fafita, who's obviously losing T-Mac, arguably the best receiver in college football,
and they have a new OC.
That's very interesting as well. I wonder, although I still really do like Avery Johnson's game, I wonder how it's going to look without the help of DJ Giddens, potentially, in my opinion, arguably the best back in the Big 12, how Avery Johnson's going to look without, his services as well. So there's some interesting storylines, but this quarterback room, and Josh Hoover as well, who is the leading passer in the Big 12 this year behind Shedeur, is losing his guy, Savion Williams, right? I believe is his name, the receiver, the talented receiver from TCU. So a lot of these guys who we're expecting at the quarterback spot in the Big 12 to continue to be productive here in 2025 are going to be without some of their top, pass catchers. So that's going to be interesting to watch as well.
That and including Colorado, there's a lot of guys who have an opportunity to make a big jump, right?
Yeah.
I mean, look at Sam Levitt. The guy led his team to the CFP. He's probably going to be in early Heisman conversations for this next season.
Yeah.
Like, can he make the jump and become one of the best quarterbacks in the country? Because then the conversation's pretty much done at that point.
Yep.
Can Fafita get back to where he was 2 years ago? Like, you saw the talent and what he was able to do in Jed Fish's offense that year. They had, 4 or 5 receivers that season too. Who knows if they're and they got the New Mexico kid, Wysong.
Yeah, who I like.
Who I liked him too. Yeah. And he was Dampier's guy last season.
Yeah. Right. It's going to be interesting about Fafita this year, bro. Because he was so good in 2023. And so dreadful in 2024 at certain points, particularly, you know, obviously the second half of the season. And without T-Mac, like we mentioned, it's going to be interesting to see, you know, kind of how he bounces back because, you know, again, is he a one-year wonder?
Right.
Or is he somebody who maybe just had a fluky year and can get back to, you know, back to his 2023 form? And maybe it's kind of a similar situation with Kaidon Salter, right? Maybe not as extreme because he wasn't as bad, you know, in 2024 as Noah Fifita was statistically, but Kaidon Salter was exceptional in 2023. Maybe he took a step down in 2024 and kind of with new surroundings, new people around him. It's going to be interesting to see how, you know, kind of he looks, evolves in 2025. But if you had to say right now, though, taking Colorado quarterbacks out of it, who would be your QB1 in Big 12 going into next year?
I mean, I keep saying his name. I can't help but think it's Sam Leavitt, just looking at the body of work and, you know, what he did in the playoffs without Jordan Tyson.
Yeah.
What he did in the Big 12 title game without Jordan Tyson, you know, how that team has been recruiting.
Yeah.
I think he's got to be in pole position, but what Dampierre did last season, if he just didn't have it all on his shoulders, I think he's like Kaidon Salter in this position to really impress and catapult himself, I mean, to the top of the Big 12, to the top of CFB, and up in the NFL draft conversation as well. What Sawyer Robinson did last season, I don't think enough people are talking about either.
Bro, 28 touchdowns to 8 interceptions. 62% of his passes were completed. Threw for over 3,000 yards. And he was, I mean, not a dual threat, but he was more than capable with his legs 100%. As well.
100%. We saw it firsthand.
Exactly. So that's going to be interesting for sure. And I think I briefly mentioned him, but Avery Johnson to me is a guy who I would keep an eye on as well. Obviously, y'all know how I feel about Avery Johnson.
Where you at on him now, though?
I still like him as a talent, bro. And, you know, again, I feel like we kind of saw baby Avery Johnson, I feel like, in 2024, right? His first year as a starter at the college level, kind of taking over for Will Howard. Obviously, I feel like we're going to see a more kind of polished, more mature version of him in 2025, and he should not be excluded from that dual threat conversation that we were just having. He's definitely square in the mix of that. He is a dynamic runner of the football. So, yeah, I mean, Avery Johnson, I think he's getting at least one of his top receivers back. I believe Jace Brown is back for Kansas State, so that's going to be a fascinating matchup. I can't wait for that game again, that rematch, Colorado-Kansas State next year. But as I'm looking at these Big 12 passing stats, man, I just pray and hope y'all didn't take Shedeur Sanders for granted, man. And it's like I want to almost knock some of these guys for the completion percentage, but as I look around the conference, it's just the norm. It's like, damn, Rocco Becht only completed 59% of his passes. Jake Retzloff only completed 58% of his passes, but that's kind of the norm. I mean, Avery Johnson was 58. Sam Leavitt was only 61. Fifita was 60. Sawyer Robertson, we were just praising, was 62. And then you see Shedeur Sanders, 74%.
It's crazy.
Of his passes were complete, man. And that's just crazy. And, oh, man, that's wild. A high average, too. The highest, I believe, in the conference, 8.7 yards per attempt. It's crazy, dog. But, yeah.
I mean,
these kids got some big shoes to fill, but, you know, clearly Kaidon Salter and obviously Juju, they got what it takes.
It was so clearly Shedeur last year, too.
Yes.
Like, he threw 9 more touchdowns than anyone else. He threw, like, 200 more yards than anyone else. The completion percentage thing you just mentioned, but also with Colorado, I mean, they threw the ball a lot more than anyone else. Josh Hoover and Baron Morton are up there.
Yeah.
But it's not really close in comparison to this conference. Last thing on this, though, if you had to pick one quarterback, like a wild card, to maybe not be the best, but like enter the top 3 conversation, besides Kaidon Salter or Julian Lewis, is it Devin Dampierre?
Yeah, you know that's my guy.
I think so, too.
You know that's my guy. And again, I trust the brass up there in Utah as well, led by Kyle Whittingham, and kind of their offensive scheme. And I believe they're did they have somebody come over from New Mexico to Utah as well in the coaching ranks?
Yeah,
like
OC,
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I like that marriage as well. There's going to be some familiarity with Dampierre, and dude is just dynamic, bro. He can make all the throws, but he is, you know, very much like Kaidon Salter in terms of a slippery runner. But Dampierre is just much more built too. So I can definitely see him kind of sneaking up on people and finding his name and kind of top 3 in the conference conversations.
We hardly mentioned it, but Connor Wegman, I think, could play a factor too. Only played 15 games. at Texas A&M the last few years. But coming down from the SEC, I mean, you've seen this happen before multiple times with these guys who, quote unquote, move down a level.
Yep.
And they are able to take their game to the next level.
Yeah, didn't really put it together in 2024, but the 2 previous seasons and kind of some limited action, like Weigman is really talented. Like he can really spin the football better than, most quarterbacks at the Power 4 level.
A first-round potential guy
Yes,
coming
he
into
was.
this last season.
Yes, he was. No doubt about it. And I still think he has that potential, that skill. And again, I feel like maybe it's not really a step down in competition because you're still in the same conference.
Right.
Well, no, you're not. You're going from SEC, obviously, to the Big 12.
I mean, you saw what ASU did to Texas, too.
Right. But I think kind of, a change of scenery can really do people well. And I think Weigman is going to benefit from that.
Willie Fritz is a good coach, too.
Yeah.
I think you saw the flashes from Houston this last year.
They're going to be sneaky this year, bro. That's
will.
not going to
I
be
agree.
something that you just chalk up as a W when you see them on your schedule like you might have did last year.
All right, let's take our first break of the day. Shout out to Live Well, man.
For real.
Football season's over. Maybe you're feeling a little down. You just got to start living better, living well. Hit up our homies. They're everywhere out here in Colorado. I mean, seriously, you drive, 10 minutes in any direction, you're probably going to hit Live Well out here in Denver. They got 25 locations across the state. The best staff in the game, too, man. I mean, seriously, they're going to help you out, find exactly what you need. They'll talk you through, different products, what's more suitable for your needs, whether it's flour, edibles, concentrates, and more. They also offer a price match guarantee, where you can get the best value by matching local competitors' prices on eligible products. Put in an order online at livewell.com. Super quick and easy process. And if you do that, you can still get in on the DNVR discount. Just mention the code DNVR25 at pickup to receive the discount, and you'll get 25% off one regular price item. Some restrictions apply. Shout out to the homies over at LiveWell.
Shout out to the squad over at Game Time, man. The NFL playoffs are in full swing. Unfortunately, we saw the end of the 2024 college football season last night.
Yeah.
But there's still football going on. So check out our homies over at Game Time, man. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code BUFFS, BUFFS, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code BUFFS, BUFFS, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
Artemis is coping about his Lions. You just broke the poor guy's heart, bro.
Hey, man.
Do you feel any regret over this?
Absolutely not.
Wow. Heartless.
It's got to be done, man. We've suffered in silence. Or maybe not in silence, but we've suffered.
You've been very loud, trust me.
We've suffered for long enough, man. And if our success has to come at the expense of the Detroit Lions coaching staff, then so be it.
Let's play by yourself.
Ooh.
I got 5 of them here for you, bro. Did you cheat? Did you look at these?
I did not. Did you even have? You don't even have them anywhere. What
Nope.
do you mean?
Nope.
Yeah. So what do you mean? Did I look at them?
There's ways.
Oh yeah, I have no idea.
All right, let's start. Buy or sell, Scotty. 12 is the perfect number for the college football playoff. After 1 year and seeing the process go down, 2 teams in the title game that played in the first round, but it's Ohio State and still Notre Dame. Is 12 the perfect number?
No, I'm selling that. I think it's 8. I think it's 8. I think you give 2 teams a bye, and you let the other 6 teams 3 games. You get 3 games out of it, and that's how you go about it. I feel like 12 is too much, and people are going to be like, "Well, it was an 8-9 matchup, right, in the championship game this year." Nobody would have been tripping if Notre Dame didn't make the damn playoff.
That's true.
And what was that record you said before the show?
They are 0-10 in big bowl games since the last 30 years.
Like, come on, dog.
The time I've been alive, they have not won a big-time bowl game.
I think 8 is the perfect number, and I think that's worth a try, too. Clearly we're in an experimental phase with the college football playoff.
Yeah.
We gave 12 teams a try. It wasn't a complete failure, but it's obvious that it could improve. I think 8 teams is kind of the way to go. I would love to see that again. 2 teams get a bye. Top 2 teams get a bye. And then you kind of get 3, kind of bowl games, big bowl game matchups, kind of lead into that. I think that'd be a dope way to do it.
I'm going to buy it, I think. And I get where you're coming from because, we only have the 1-year sample size, right? But, is this how it's going to be where it's just, the at-larges, the Ohio States, the Alabamas of the world, they get in, in that 12 through 9 range, and they are clearly very, very talented, and they just get hot and they just roll the whole playoff. Is this what we're signing up for?
Yeah.
But I will add, I loved having, 8-7 games of meaningful college football.
I hear that.
And I do think that a lot of that, what I just went over, with Ohio State getting it at 9 and Notre Dame at 8, whatever, that's just a seeding issue, I think, that can get figured out. So I'm going to stick with the 12-team playoff for now.
And also, too, and part of the reason it's a couple of those true first-round matchups, we didn't need to see that. We didn't need to see Ohio State play Tennessee. You know what I'm saying? And right. I see Mr. Hillsman talking about, I'm definitely not acting like Notre Dame didn't have a chance to win last night. And I'm not talking like Notre Dame got blew out like TCU did a few years ago. But Ronnell Wilson, to your point, you're talking about major bowl games that they haven't won. As in, yeah. So, yeah. But, yeah, Chad's cooking right now. We were talking about the no bias thing. Yeah, I'm clearly in favor of that. Right. Potentially, moving that away from things, but it's got to get fixed somehow. I would like to see 8 teams.
Well, we are 1 year into this new process. We'll see what changes.
It will change.
Next one, with Ohio State winning the national title, is the Big Ten the best conference in college football? Last 2 years, Ohio State. Oh, sorry. Can we do that one? Last 2 years.
Yeah.
Ohio State winning it, Michigan winning it. Michigan damn near. If they beat TCU, they're playing for a national title the year before as well.
Yeah.
You now have Oregon in the conversation. Teams like Indiana are coming up. Have they surpassed the SEC?
I think so. I think you have to say the Big Ten is the best conference right now. The 2 best teams pretty much all year, you could probably you could say it was probably Oregon and Ohio State. And again, I feel like the shift I think you can point at is Nick Saban retiring. I feel like once Nick Saban was no longer, at Alabama, people kind of began looking at the SEC different. And especially what the SEC put on tape this year, from a football perspective in 2024, it's hard to say that they're clearly still the top dogs of college football. And especially when you throw in some of the teams like Indiana coming up, Michigan is not going anywhere. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, who would you even say is the top dog? Georgia all year has kind of been weird. And they're about to go into a new era, too, potentially with maybe Gunnar Stockton at quarterback. So, yeah, man, I think it is the Big Ten. And I think it's also the gap between maybe the SEC, whoever the top dog is, and maybe the Big 12 is slimming down as well, after we were just talking about the quarterbacks in particular, because, the SEC quarterbacks next year, obviously Nico is probably the headliner, right? I
think you're right. Arch
is definitely the headliner, but yeah, aside from those two, it's a lot of young, unproven guys who maybe we've heard the names of, but we haven't really seen what they can do, in the SEC.
I like the South Carolina kid. I can't remember his name.
Sellers is dope. Yeah, Lenore Sellers, yeah.
Ole Miss is going to have a new kid.
Right.
Nussmeier's back at LSU.
Yep. Good player.
But, yeah, that's kind of it, man. I'm going to buy it.
Definitely.
I think the playoffs this year was kind of telling.
Yes.
Not just from the Big 12 standpoint, but what you mentioned, from the Big 10 standpoint, but seeing ASU go up against Texas. Yeah. Georgia's starting to show, some cracks in the armor as well. It's almost unsustainable, that level that they had for so long.
Right.
Where it's almost like a natural drop off at this point,
Definitely. And I feel like the transfer portal, NIL stuff is definitely even the playing grounds too, for sure.
And then I still think teams like the Pac-12 teams coming in, Washington, USC, UCLA, I don't think they're going to be that bad the entire time that they're in the Big Ten. They're going to have years.
I agree.
So, it's going to be a lot like we saw this year with Oregon kind of challenging for the top. I think you're going to see a lot of those teams, Indiana included.
Yeah.
Next one.
I'm off where we're at. So just
Do the Tennessee one then. Tennessee Titans are the ideal landing spot for Shedeur Sanders. Buy or sell?
I'm selling that. I think it's the New York Giants. I think Brian Daboll is the best potential head coach that Shedeur Sanders can land, realistically landing within kind of that top 3 to 5 range of the draft. I think Malik Neighbors is probably the best receiver that Shedeur Sanders can realistically land with in that top 3 to 5 in the draft. I love Tyrone Tracy, their young running back as well.
Yeah.
And I think they've got some pieces defensively. And also, obviously that division has kind of gotten tougher with the emergence of Jaden Daniels and, the consistency of the Philadelphia Eagles. But I think the Giants are a perfect landing spot for Shedeur Sanders, not to mention it's in New York, which is a city that I feel like Shedeur would fit right in.
I think I'm the same as you. I'm going to sell it, although I do see kind of a path for it to work at Tennessee.
Yep. I see a path for it to work in Cleveland.
Oh, I don't think so.
I just think Shedeur is kind of a guy who can really fit anywhere as long as there's something there for him to work with.
I agree, but I just do not trust that ownership group.
Okay. Respectable.
Real quick, the case for Tennessee, I've compared him to Joe Burrow a lot, play style wise.
You sure have.
Brian Callahan, after spending, I don't know, first 4-ish years of Joe Burrow's career being his OC at Cincinnati.
Yeah.
He really got him rolling. And he got him comfortable. He knows exactly what he needed to do to make Joe Burrow be Joe Burrow. And I think he could do that with Shedeur Sanders. I think they made a solid GM hire, Mike Borgonzi, the Chiefs guy. I mean,
definitely.
They obviously have been doing pretty well the last couple of years as well. So they need work.
Yeah.
You need receivers. You need a new line. You probably need a running back, too. You need a defense.
I tell you what they have figured out, though, that offensive line.
They have.
I feel like they've got 2 tackles within the last 2 or 3 drafts that are both starters, like, locked in. You know what I'm saying? So they've addressed that part of it, and whoever lands there, again, whether it's Shedeur or Cam Ward potentially, who's gaining buzz for that number 1, pick, I feel like they'll be set up decently there. But for Shedeur, it's a giant.
Yeah, so I'll lean sell, but I can see a case for Tennessee making it work with Shedeur for sure. Next one, Alyssa.
which one? Big 12 or
You pick.
Surprise us.
Buy or sell, Scotty. The Big 12 will have multiple playoff teams in 2025.
I'm selling that.
Really?
Yeah.
After what we just talked about in the first segment, conference of quarterbacks.
I think the respect for the Big 12 is increased, but I don't think it's there yet. I still think the committee in particular, is going to have SEC bias. They're going to have SEC bias, and the Big 10 bias is coming. Yep. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's going to lead to the Big 12 being a one big team again in 2025. But with that being said, I think there would be 2-3 teams potentially that are worthy of a playoff spot. But again, we've seen how the committee kind of works. We know that they have an affinity for the SEC and the Big 10. So yeah, I think I'm going to sell that at this point.
I think I'm going to buy it just because this season was so weird for the Big 12 in terms of how matchups happened, right? Mm-hmm. Like hardly any of the top 4 played each other. Colorado didn't play BYU till the bowl game.
Right.
I think ASU played Iowa State at one point. Did BYU and Iowa State play? I don't think so.
I'm not sure.
So I just think it was a weird year with how the schedule worked out. And I do think that if the quarterback play is what we thought it would be, as we were talking in the first segment, then, it takes, I don't know, say Dan Pierre just goes crazy.
Yeah.
They have a crazy year. They win 10 games. Maybe they even miss the Big 12 title game. They're third in the conference. I think if you have a quarterback that can kind of, carry the banner for the conference, you'll get that second team.
That would be the caveat, right? If there's a quarterback who it's like, we can't keep this guy out of the playoff.
Yeah.
But I would throw in the caveat that they kind of just had that opportunity. They kept Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter out of the playoff. And I feel like, too, you know how often we hear particularly, with kind of the playoff and, should a team make it, we hear, who have they beaten? What are their quality wins?
Right.
And if, committee members kind of lump the Big 12 in kind of one, kind of pot, so to speak, it's going to be hard. And if, your best wins are against a Big 12 team, they might look at, you don't have any quality wins. You only beat up on, Big 12 teams, conference opponents who we don't even really think is a really good elite conference. So I feel like that can kind of work against itself as well. The conference kind of cannibalizes itself, and whoever comes out on top gets a spot, much like, Arizona State did this year.
That's a good point. Just scrolling through the some non-conference games for the Big 12 next year. I think CU might have the biggest non-conference game in Georgia Tech. Just from scanning ASU, from scanning BYU, Iowa State, pulling up Utah's right now. I mean,
there's a big week 1 Big 12 matchup of Big 12 teams.
I think it's Iowa State, K-State.
It is, which will be a hell of a game.
It will be.
Would that be one that
the non-conference
game? Right? Okay, but that could be it too. I mean,
Utah's non-conference doesn't do anything for me really. I'll check Texas Tech real quick, but I mean, it's really looking like Georgia Tech.
Yeah, and Georgia Tech is a common top 25 team in people's way too early. Top 25 for 2025. So. Start the season out with a really quality win over a quality program like Georgia Tech. That can really set you up for the 2025 season.
All right, let's take our next break.
Don't we got one more?
We do have one more. We'll get to it.
My bad. Let me let you run the show. Let me shout out.
Shout out to the homies over at Toyota. Just for getting us wherever you want to go safely, reliably, comfortable as well. Shout out to RK's RAV4 with that clutch roadside assistance.
Yes.
We found out the hard way, but man, Toyota really does have your back covered. If you get one of their cars and you, I don't know, say ended up stranded on the side of Highway 36 outside of in between Boulder and Denver, That
sounds like pretty specific, like it happened to you or something.
No, it might have some experience, but yeah, super quick response time. They're going to take care of you, and it's just bundled in when you buy a Toyota. So no better reason. Visit a Front Range Toyota store at a location near you today. AutoNation Toyota, Arapahoe, and Centennial. Carwin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson Toyota East in Aurora, and Stevenson Toyota West in Lakewood. Toyota is a proud partner of CU Athletics and the official vehicle of DNVR. Let's go places. Roads are looking better today, by the way.
Much
a lot
better. Yes. Yesterday was crazy, dog.
I mean, yesterday you kind of had to have a Toyota to get where you had to go out in Denver.
Yesterday you kind of almost had to have a Coors Light with you to get through the cold outside. It was cold outside, and it still is cold outside, but nothing colder than a cold Coors Light with those blue mountains on the bottle, man. It's hard to beat that, man. Shout out to the homies at Coors Light, man. Choose chill this winter and then reach for a Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door. Visit CoorsLight.com/DNVR, or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado.
It's crazy how, what was yesterday? 8 degrees was the high or whatever. I think we walked out of here. It was around 6 degrees, whatever it was. It's wild how much warmer 29 degrees feels.
I saw 32 leaving the crib today, and I'm like, yes.
But I was like, why did I even wear a jacket today?
No, for real. This is all I wore. Just black. That's all I need.
It really is crazy, though.
And that's part of the reason why I love Denver so much, and why days like yesterday was just crazy.
It was elite. Or Denver is elite.
100%.
Yesterday, not so elite.
Yes.
Today's just a reminder that, you know what? It actually isn't that cold.
Preach.
All right, let's do the final buy or sell. Buy or sell, Scotty. Colorado should add a running back via the transfer portal.
That's a hell of a question, bro. It's a hell of a question. Wow, that's a hell of a question. I'm really thinking about this one right now.
This is the one, I think, when I asked you, I was like, I need one more buy or sell. And you like asked for an example, and I was like, I don't know. And I just thought of this, and I was like, you know what? That's actually a question for the show.
I really think it depends. On, I think this staff would have to identify, much like they did with Salter, they would have to identify a running back that's like, yeah, he fits.
Right.
He fits what we want to do. I don't think you need to go and get a running back just for the sake of getting a running back and adding to that row, because I very much believe in Michael Welch. I very much believe in Isaiah Gustav. I think Dallin Hayden still has a lot of good football in front of him. So, again, that would be my answer. And that's kind of playing the middle. That's not buying or selling it, but that would be my answer. Again, if this staff, again, identify somebody, maybe they're a late addition to the portal. Maybe they don't enter the portal until, the spring. If they identify somebody who is, kind of that 3-down back that they're looking for, somebody who can pass protect, run behind their pads, catch passes out of the backfield, and they fit kind of what this scheme wants to do in 2025, go out and target him. But I'd be perfectly fine if the current running back room is the running back room we see in 2025.
I do think it's a very interesting question, and I wouldn't blame you if you buy, but I think I'm going to sell too. And it's all for the reasons you said. But then I also think of what we talked about yesterday with Draylon Miller and Cam Michael and that wide back role. And if you can get one of those guys, even Quentin Gibson, in the backfield and flesh out the run game that way, I mean, you don't have to find another guy worth 100, 150 carries, you know what I mean, out of the portal.
Because Salter's going to add 50 attempts as well.
Exactly. If Kaidon Salter wins the job, you're going to be running the football a hell of a lot better anyway, just because of the way your team's going to work.
Most definitely.
I believe in Micah greatly as well. I mean, and even if they trotted Isaiah out as the starting running back, like the first week, it's like, okay, like
for sure,
I can see the pathway to him being the leading rusher for this football team this year.
So could I.
But with Draylon and Cam and potentially Quentin Gibson and how creative you can get, but that's the thing, is how creative is this team going to get with them? Will they be able to truly use their skill set in those different ways that can expand your offense? That's, I think, the key that really unlocks the running game, besides Kaidon Salter, I guess. But if you can get, I don't know, man, a combined 60 carries from guys like Draylon, Cam, and Quentin Gibson, and you get, I don't know, 400 yards out of them, 500 yards potentially even.
That's big.
That's massive.
That's big.
So I'll sell.
It's a hell of a question, though. And also, people might disagree with this, but I also kind of feel like this staff kind of owes those running backs a little bit because they were so underused, so underutilized last year. Yeah. And we know the reason why. When you have a quarterback like Shedeur Sanders and you have weapons like Colorado had in 2024, that's going to be the focal point of your offense. But I feel like, again, this staff kind of maybe owes some of those guys, Michael Welch, Isaiah Gustav, Dallin Hayden, knowing that they weren't going to be a focal point, it's a good chance that they will be in 2025. Yeah. So kind of see what they look like in that role instead of, consistently kind of being, kind of put in this. This man, Nick, just walked in with the fluffiest dog I might have ever seen in my life.
Is that your dog?
No way.
Show it. Yeah, show him.
Is this not the fluffiest dog y'all have ever seen? I mean, look at this thing.
What's the puppy's name? Oh, my God. This is a stuffed animal, bro.
This is Moose.
Moose. That's a hell of a day. What up, big
crazy.
Right, good to see you, bro.
Yeah, welcome back, bro.
But yeah, again, I think this staff kind of owes it to those guys who were in that running back room last year to kind of see what they look like in increased role with increased opportunities.
Yep. All right, a few more things to hit on before we get to questions. By the way, though, get your questions in the chat now. And hit the like button. We're running a little light on likes. I know it's off-season time, guys, but you got to like the show.
Smack that like button.
Like the show.
What y'all doing?
Subscribe to the channel. Do all that good stuff. All right. Final AP poll came out.
Sure did.
Of course, we'll talk about the national championship. We'll get there. But the Buffs make an appearance. One final appearance. And according to the voters, they were one of the 25 best teams in college football this last year. They literally come in at 25. Just Still coming off that loss in the Alamo Bowl, but they beat out others receiving votes were Navy, LSU, Louisville, Michigan, K-State, Marshall, Florida, TCU, Texas A&M. Just ahead of the Buffs at number 24 is Memphis, 23 is UNLV, 22 is Mizzou, 21 is Army, 20 is Syracuse, and then it's a bunch of the usual suspects after that. But one final kind of I told you so about this team.
Top 25 team.
Yeah, when it comes to 2024.
Top 25 team. And what was that, 4 Big 12 teams in the final 2025? Excuse me, the final top 25.
So 25 at Colorado.
I think Arizona State, BYU.
15 Iowa State,
and
13
Iowa State?
BYU, and then ASU will come in at number 7. So 4 of them.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, that's if you needed kind of another stamp to put on this season as a really good one, there it is.
Yep.
The second time I believe Colorado finished the season ranked in the top 25 in like the last
like 20
plus
probably?
years. Yeah. Obviously the first time since 2016. And that's looking at 2024. Maybe looking ahead to 2025. Did you see ESPN's 2025 way too early college football top 25 rankings?
Did they put CU in?
Mark Schlabach just last night. Didn't have him in the top 25. But teams also considered Auburn, Texas Tech, Missouri, Georgia Tech, who the Buffs will see in week 1, Baylor, Duke, Washington, Nebraska, Iowa, Army, Colorado.
All right.
Teams also considered for the 2025 way too early top 25. So,
I mean, if that doesn't show you how far this program has come in the last 2 years, literally the worst
yes.
FBS program in the country, by far the worst Power 5, but in the conversation for worst FBS team in the country, 2 years now after that, you're finishing in the top 25 in the final poll of the season, and you are a big-time, way too early top 25 candidate
Yes.
for the next season.
What a time to be alive.
It is insane. Shout out, Jay.
And that was crazy, though. I mean, yeah.
There's some in the water down there, bro. We got a new mock draft from our guy Jordan Reed over at ESPN. Who had the last one we did? Do you remember?
I think your boy Brugler.
Brugler, that's right.
Yeah.
So Brugler had Cam Ward at 1, Travis at 3 to the Giants, Shedeur at 6 to the Raiders.
Okay.
Jordan Reed has Cam Ward at 1 to the Titans. He has Shedeur Sanders at 2 to the Cleveland Browns. And then Travis Hunter 3 to the New York Giants.
Wow.
Second mock in a row that we've done where Travis Hunter is a New York Giant.
Yeah, again, like I said last week, I think the Giants are in an enviable spot. You can either get one of the top 2 quarterbacks in the draft or the best overall player in the draft. That's what has to happen. And that's a pretty cool spot to be in. But that's interesting to hear our guy Jordan Reed mock Shedeur to Cleveland at 2. That makes sense to me. And that's kind of why I keep going there. It's like, if say Cam Ward goes number 1, or say Travis goes number 1, which is also both possible.
Sure.
If you're the Cleveland Browns and you're staring at potentially adding Shedeur Sanders, why would you not do that? The only other thing that I would do if I were them is trade back and be like, we're just not ready for a quarterback, at this point, and get as many, assets as you can that way. But if Shedeur is there and you're the Cleveland Browns, I think Kevin Stefanski too, he would want somebody like him. He's seeing what Deshaun Watson is at this point of his career, money aside. But it'll be interesting. And again, I don't think it would be a death sentence for Shedeur Sanders to land in Cleveland with Kevin Stefanski. It really wouldn't be.
Look, I mean, we've talked about this quite a bit already. I do think, and Jordan Reed even says in the little blurb here, Sanders is an ideal fit in Kevin Stefanski's offense as his game centers around his polish as a pocket passer.
Period.
And I get it.
Period.
100%. I get it. I just don't know if coach will trust the organization that is the Cleveland Browns and how snake bitten they have been since they have come back as the Cleveland Browns in the last damn near 30 years or whatever it is.
I get it.
So it's interesting because you have this dead cap situation too with Deshaun Watson. Like, Do you want to put Shedeur in that situation where your team is basically hamstrung for $40 to $50 million for the next 4 years?
Yeah.
His whole rookie contract, potentially.
Yeah. And, potentially him, I think we mentioned it, but Deshaun tearing his Achilles again
Yep.
away from the team could potentially give the Browns an out where they don't have to pay him all of that guaranteed money because he was, maybe hurt away from the facility, not doing football activity. So
Right.
that could be a caveat in this situation where, again, the Browns don't have to give Deshaun Watson all that guaranteed money that they owe him, which could open some things up. But again, I completely get the skepticism for Shedeur Sanders in Cleveland. Trust me, I get it. But again, when you're being projected to be drafted in the top 3 or 5 picks, there's warts with every single team, every single one, Giants included, Titans included. So it's really about seeing what's there, what's in place, and how you can fit in.
You're right. Travis in New York would be a ton of fun, though.
Yes, bro.
With the Giants, I mean, him and Neighbors would be unreal. I mean, I think if you just do that and you sign a Kirk Cousins type, like
Sam Darnold.
type, like,
Those two would be worth the price of admission every single weekend.
yeah, I mean, you're almost guaranteeing yourself like a 500 record at that point. If
Yeah.
the defense shows up.
No doubt.
And probably have Travis playing some defense, too.
Yep.
The national title, we have a new national champion.
Sheesh.
Ohio State, I was going to say beat down. I don't know if it was quite to that level, but it wasn't really close.
No.
They
Final
won-
score is much more closer than the game.
Yeah, 34-23, Ohio State beats Notre Dame for the national championship. My quick takeaway is Notre Dame just left it all on the field after that first drive.
Yeah, I mean, I think
It was-
Fowler did a really good job of talking about it in the moment.
Yeah.
He's like, Riley Leonard looks spent.
Yes.
And it seemed like Notre Dame kind of felt like that was their only path to offensive success was running Riley Leonard
Yep.
and, getting that extra man in the run game. And clearly it worked on that opening drive. But even after they scored on the opening drive, I was like, that was too difficult.
Yeah.
That was way too hard. That took
Yep.
way too much effort out of Notre
I think
Dame.
Leonard had
So
9 carries on
he
the
did.
first drive.
And I remember opening that game right before that first drive. Herbstreit was like, this is a game where Riley Leonard is going to have to carry at least 15 times. And people might say that's a lot, but
Yep.
it is what it is. And then, like you said, he carries it 9 times on the opening drive. And doesn't he go to the sideline and throw up right after that?
Yeah.
Like, he's gassed. Like, you're
Yeah.
already juiced up as a national championship. You have so much adrenaline rushing. And then you just put it all out there on the field on the opening drive to put 7 points on the board. And you still got 3.5 quarters to play. That's a tough situation to be in.
That was the game, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, really, I think there was some. If you were rooting for Notre Dame, I was. There was some hope after that drive, But there's also, I think, the natural thought immediately after that, that's just not sustainable.
Exactly.
You just can't. You would have had Riley Leonard carrying the ball damn near 40 times,
Right.
at that point.
Yeah.
The absence of Jeremiah Love was puzzling to me. I don't know if it was the injury or what.
Had to
but,
have been, bro.
4 carries for 3 yards.
Yeah, it's crazy.
2 receptions for 5 yards. This man had 6 touches for 9 yards in the national title game. One of the best backs in the country, and one of the reasons
It has to be an injury thing. I mean, I know that he
has to.
got off the brace, I believe, that he wore in the previous game. So it seemed like he was 90, 95%. I think that was the reporting going into it. But, yeah, that was crazy.
Notre Dame running backs only had 8 carries. Riley Leonard had 17.
But, again, it's kind of what I talked about. It's part of the reason I picked Ohio State. Number 3 rushing defense in college football this year. Everybody has had trouble running the ball on them. And they probably felt going into it, if we're going to run the football, it's probably going to be through Riley Leonard.
Yep.
And that was the case. And shout out to Ohio State, man. They put together a hell of a team. It cost damn near $20 million, but to do it. But they did it, man. Ryan Day proved that, he shouldn't be on the hot seat, to say the very least. He's a national championship head coach.
Extend him.
I'm sure you would like that, right?
Yep.
But yeah, man, Ohio State, man, they put together a hell of a roster. Jeremiah Smith is a star. I'm excited to see where Ibuka ends up in the NFL because I
Yep.
feel like he's going to be a really good player as well. That running back duo that they had with Henderson and Judkins.
Judkins went crazy
Yeah, they
last
were
night.
both dominant last night, particularly Judkins. So, yeah, I mean, I was a deserving national champion for sure.
100%. Putting a cap on the first 12-team playoff. Again, I'm buying the 12-team playoff, man. I enjoyed it. I know everyone wanted to complain about it after the first game, the first weekend, because there was first-round blowouts. But this is how it's meant to be done, I think. And it's the first ever national title contender, I think, that you can say truly settled on the field.
You know what I just came across, bro? So I had these numbers pulled up from the top rushing defenses in college football this year, right?
Uh-huh.
For Ohio State at 3. You know who was 11th in rushing defense this season? It's 2024. You're not going to guess, so I'm going to tell you. UTSA. You know who was probably their best defender?
French.
Martavius French, who's now at Colorado Buffalo. I just found that interesting.
I mean, he's the one that led the nation in
17
TFLs, right?
tackles for loss, led all inside linebackers in the nation. So
Sounds like a big
that's
reason
interesting.
for that. It's a nice nugget.
Well, yeah.
I'll give credit to Will Howard too, man. I mean, I've
Yeah.
dogged on the guy the whole playoff run, especially after the Michigan game. But
Yeah.
he really, I mean, I don't know how many people saw this, but damn, he elevated his level of play, and
He did, man. He was lights out the whole playoffs.
he really was. At one point yesterday, he was like, in the first half, he was like 15 to 16, like with a touchdown and 150 yards, like literally the best half in like title game history in the last 20 years or something. I can't remember what the stat
against
is exactly.
a really good defense.
Against a damn good defense. I mean, Chip Kelly too. You got to give credit to him. I
Yes,
think,
very much so.
because they were literally just running circles around Notre Dame early on.
I think this job he's done might get him another head coaching job.
If he wants it,
Yeah, right. Has he said that
wants
he
it.
might not?
I think that's why he wanted to leave UCLA. I think he was just sick of it. Kind of the Saban type of thing where,
Sure.
you know, you've been doing college football for so long and it's changed so much, and you are getting a little bit older. You're already a damn good play caller. Like,
Yeah.
let me just call plays type of thing. All right, let's get to questions. What's up, Ivan? What's the over-under on Buffs drafted this coming April?
4.5.
Oh, I'd take the over on that easily. I'm going to say around 6 or 7. I mean, Shedeur, Travis, LeJohntay, Jimmy, Will,
BJ,
BJ, Cam,
block bully.
Block Bully, Shiloh. Did we say Jimmy?
Yeah, you did. So yeah, maybe put it at 5.5, 6.5.
Yeah. It's going to be fascinating.
Yeah, it is.
Jay asks Scotty, how happy are you about Ben Johnson leading our Chicago Bears? No retreads, no safe picks. Ned Flanders finally got the prom queen.
Happy BJ Day is crazy.
That's wild.
But I am celebrating BJ Day, man. We got our guy Ben Johnson in the building, man. I'm excited, Jay. I'm not gonna lie, man. I'm elated, bro. It's been a long time.
This dude damn near threw a party in the office yesterday when that came through.
I did, man. It came through. I saw that Schefter tweet come through. I'm like, let's go. My boys didn't waste no time. They lost on Saturday. On Monday, that boy in Chicago with it, man. I'm excited, man. Caleb Williams. I like what I've seen of him. I know he's a very polarizing, kind of player right now, but I feel like with a coordinator or coach like Ben Johnson, Bears are going to be dangerous in 2025.
I hope so for you, man. I do feel bad for the Lions fans out there, though, because it felt like this was like
They'll be all right.
this was like their year, though. Like,
Yeah,
if
I mean,
not
you're
this year, when honestly,
especially after that Vikings Week 18 game, they lock up the number 1 seed and then don't even win a playoff game after that. That's pretty depressing. But
Yep. J-Rod asks, I'd love to know what the guys think about how to improve the penalties. That's a great question that I honestly don't know if we can answer. I mean, to boil it down, it just comes to discipline.
yeah,
It comes down to, that comfort, familiarity with the guys who line up next to you, that trust that comes with that. It's also coaching too, I think, in a way. And I think it's coaching discipline too. Not being tolerant to certain things, but I can't put my finger on exactly why the Buffs have had this issue the last 2 seasons.
I really can't either. But I mean, discipline, that's the word that immediately came to mind too. I mean, that starts right now too in January. and that bleeds into the spring. That bleeds into fall camp.
Yeah, it starts now.
By the time the season rolls around, you already are a disciplined team. So, we'll see. I mean, I don't think there's definitely not an exact science on limiting penalties, but it starts with discipline for sure, and that starts with the coaching staff.
Jalen asked Schwanitz and Scott, how do you guys feel about DJ Lagway from Florida? Great show today. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
DJ Lagway, I mean, we were talking in the scope of NFL draft eligible quarterbacks next year, but in terms of overall most talented quarterbacks, I mean, he might be the most talented quarterback in the SEC.
He's explosive, man. He's got a lot of talent. I mean, a rocket arm, can obviously make plays with his legs as well. Florida got them one, and honestly, that pretty much DJ Lagway pretty much saved Billy Napier's job.
I mean, for
down
real.
there in Florida, if they hadn't landed him, and if Lagway hadn't shown some flashes here this season, Napier would probably have been out of there. But yeah, Lagway is exciting, and again, in a conference with a lot of, we were talking about unproven, maybe inexperienced quarterbacks. Obviously, Lagway is a bit experienced himself, but from a pure talent perspective, he could end up being one of the best quarterbacks in that conference this year.
Yep. Jay Saw asks, is the 5430 NIL still a good place to donate? It has changed. What is it, Buff Club, I think it is?
I think that's what I heard.
We covered it in a show. I wish I could tell you which show, honestly.
Friday or Thursday, something.
Didn't Rick put out an email for this, though?
Yeah, I'm not too keen on that. I ain't gonna lie.
I think it's the Buff Club. Next question. Mr. Maurice, will we get a new alternate uniform this year?
That'd be tough. In a good way.
I mean, knowing Coach Prime, you can't rule it out. I'm not going to say no.
Why would you?
You're good. Super chats, East Coast Kev. I just finished watching Reach the People Media and the team working out. It's going to take some getting used to seeing all these new faces. Salute, chat, and DNVR. You're right. It's truly a new era.
Kev.
But it's every year. This is every year in college football.
I think it's cool that Shedeur and Shiloh are still hanging around the building, though.
Mm-hmm.
That clip, I don't know if it was on Reach the People or Well Off, but of Shedeur and Shiloh talking about their 40s.
Oh, I didn't watch that one yet.
And Shiloh was like, I think Shiloh was like, yeah, I ran like a 4.5. Ooh. And Shedeur like, yo, daddy ran like a 4.2. And then Shiloh was like, have you ever even seen video of dad's 40? And it just
going back in the archives.
Right. That brotherly back and forth is just hilarious.
No, I'll have to check that out. It is cool to have them around, but you'll get used to it. By the time spring football comes, you'll know who everyone is.
Definitely.
Mr. Hillsman, our guy, just says, shout out all the DNVR folks behind the scenes. Shout out to you, Mr. Hillsman.
Appreciate you.
That is you.
RG Ski, what up?
Rev BJ Nelson, last super chat says, Coach Deshaun Jackson versus Coach Mike Vick
Ooh.
on November 1st, 2025 is a must-see. That's awesome. Hell yeah.
That'd be sick.
Can't wait for that one. I'm already siding with my guy Vic, though. All due respect to D-Jax, who was one of my favorite players growing up.
Yeah.
Michael Vick was the favorite player, so.
Oh, man. See, I didn't even put two and two together, the fact that they were like legitimate teammates, too.
Yeah,
like,
bro.
Damn, that's going to be dope.
Those were my favorite teams of all time.
I'll never forget that Monday night against Washington.
Mine is the Miracle in the Meadowlands Part 2.
Oh, his punt return? Touchdown?
The punt return, but the Eagles were down like 31-7
for sure.
with like, I don't know, 2-3 minutes left in the third quarter, and Vic just went crazy.
Tell me, bro. I mean, we talk about this, bro. Michael Vick was like my first
Oh,
goat.
he was, yeah.
A fat head of him in my room. I had Michael Vick cleats in 5th grade. That was my guy. First time I cried legitimately cried at a sporting event.
Yeah.
Was when Michael Vick and the Falcons lost, I believe, in the divisional round to Donovan McNabb and the Eagles.
Yep.
I was like, no way, the season just ended. There's no way. Not my guy, Vic.
Man, he's legendary status, honestly.
And the tears were definitely flowing when my boy had to go away. Sit down in that can for a few years.
That was rough.
I was really hurt there.
Honestly, I was too. But it was fitting seeing him in Philly, though, honestly.
Yeah, it was.
That just felt right. That's it. Good show.
Man, you know what a fat
Y'all
head
are
is.
crazy,
Come on,
bro.
King Mars.
Please.
The big, you feel me? The big poster to cut out. Y'all, man, you know what it is, man.
You know what fat heads are, but you don't know what Patreon is?
Y'all, don't Patreon sound like a very, like, mid-tier shelf of liquor. That sounds like a battle of alcohol.
That's insane. What
Not
else was it
familiar.
recently, though? Something you asked about. I was like, bro, how do you not know this?
I don't know, man. I appreciate you not judging, though, Mr. Hillsman. That's what we need. People to just listen without judgment. That's what we need.
East Coast Kev said with the super chat, I saw you bracing yourself before reading my first super chat. Relax, I'm turning over a new leaf. Alyssa says she'll believe it when she sees it, but Kev, it's just, it is what it is, man. You're going to get me on one of them. Okay, see, I know fat heads are a staple. I had one. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I knew what they are.
Oh, that's Patron. Hey, I just put to it. Maybe that's why I thought it
my
was that.
God, you're insane.
Hey, there it is. Thank you, Don Juan. Hey, that's hilarious. That's probably why I thought that, because it sounds like Patron.
Yeah, but I was talking to him about Patreon earlier today, and he, what?
See, listen, I don't know what it is. I'm not alone, G.
That's
I'm not
crazy.
alone.
Anyways, it's like a website where like you can like pay creators for content, basically. Like, so that's where I get my draft film and cut ups and stuff. So I told Scott, like, you got to join the Patreon. Like, you got to pay the guy to get access to the database.
I was like,
and he's
what
like,
is
what the
that?
hell is that? I was like, what are you talking about? All right, maybe RK will be back tomorrow.
Perhaps.
Go bug him on Twitter. Get an
Facts.
answer.
And Instagram. Why not?
He said it, not me. See you tomorrow, Go Buffs.
We all silly like the mayor.